Asha sat by the broad viewport of the spaceport lounge, staring at the tiny speck of light that was Titan in the distance. Every evening for the last month, she had watched the orange glow of its atmosphere drift across the dark sky, and every evening her chest tightened with longing. Her closest friend, Kieran, had sailed away on the first colonist ship, chasing a dream of new beginnings. Now, Asha felt a hollow ache in her heart, as if a part of herself had slipped through her fingers and settled on a moon far away. She tapped at her datapad, drafting another message. "How are you?" she typed, then deleted it. Small, too ordinary for the weight she carried. Weeks passed between transmissions, thanks to the delay in interplanetary relay. By the time her words reached Titan and a reply puffed back, she had already rewritten her message 3 times. She worried that each note sounded flat, that Kieran might sense only duty and not her true yearning to bridge the silent gulf between them. Memories swirled in Asha's mind. She remembered Kieran's easy laugh when they fixed a broken solar array on the old lunar station together. She recalled how they celebrated tiny victories restoring power, growing lettuce under lead. Lights always side by side. Those small triumphs had felt like proof of humanity's determination to flourish wherever they went. Now, the same determination burned within Asha, but it was tinged with doubt. Could she reach across the void, or had they drifted too far apart? One afternoon, while wandering the maintenance decks, Asha overheard engineers speculating about new communication arrays. A spark lit inside her. If she could build a stronger signal or send something beyond plain text, maybe she could show Kieran how much she cared. She returned home to her workshop with renewed purpose. She cleared a work table and spread out circuit boards, laser diodes, and fiber optic cables. Her fingers trembled with both excitement and fear. In the days that followed, Asha worked late. Into the artificial night, she sketched designs on a holopad, integrating parts from discarded drones and recycled probes. She spoke softly to herself, imagining Kieran's face lighting up at the sight of something more personal than a dry data packet. Each time a solder joint snapped perfectly into place, she felt a small surge of hope. Human hands, she reminded herself, could do incredible things when guided by the heart. Her invention took shape. A small orb no larger than a grapefruit, wrapped in reflective panels and inscribed with delicate lines of poetry. Inside, a tiny projector would play a holographic recording of Asha speaking, her voice calm but earnest. Around the sphere, she etched patterns that recalled the lunar arrays they once repaired together. It was a device born of simple materials, but it carried something far more powerful: her devotion. When the orb was ready, Asha carried it too, the launch bay under a sky painted with distant stars. Technicians helped secure it in the bay of a courier shuttle bound for Titan, as the engines thundered to life. She pressed her palm against the transparent casing, whispering, "I won't give up on us." She imagined Kieran holding this gift. Weeks from now, the light of the projector shimmering in their eyes, she pictured their smile, the one that had once made her world feel safe. Back in the lounge, Asha leaned against the cool wall and closed her eyes. In that moment, her sorrow and her hope danced together, sorrow for the miles between them, hope that those miles could be measured in less than fear. Even if the orb failed or drifted off course, she had shown her true self. That was the essence of HFY, she told herself, to face the impossible and still believe in connection, empathy, and the bright future humanity could craft. Night gave way to dawn in the lounge lights. Asha watched the shuttle's wake recede until it was just a faint trail against the stars. Her chest felt lighter. She did not know when she would hear from Kieran again, but she knew she had done everything she could. In the silence that followed, she whispered a promise to the universe: "I will find you, no matter the distance." And in her heart, the orbit of hope began to glow. Marisol stood at the edge of the launch pad, her gloves clasped tight around the railing. Before her, the colony ship Dauntless arced into the sky, its engines glowing like embers in the night. Aboard that ship was Theo, her older brother and best friend. Bound for the newly settled outpost on Ceres, they had grown up together on Mars, exploring dusty canyons and sharing dreams beneath the pink sky. Now, as the ship climbed higher, Marisol felt that same sky grow empty without him. For weeks after Theo left, Marisol's days moved too slowly. She walked the corridors of the habitat, past solar panels and hydroponic gardens, but nothing felt right. Each time her datapad buzzed, she rushed to read Theo's messages. He wrote of icy tunnels, of fragile crops struggling to grow in low gravity, of the thrill of discovery. But every message ended the same way. Wish you were here. In her heart, Marisol held no doubt of her brother's love. Yet the words felt distant, like constellations too far apart to connect. Late one evening, Marisol sat beneath the glowing lamps of the greenhouse. Rows of lettuce and beans stretched overhead, their leaves shimmering with dew. She pressed her palm to a leaf and closed her eyes. She remembered how Theo taught her to identify cold-resistant strains, how they laughed when a vine tangled around their boots. That memory was warm against her chest, but it also deepened her sorrow. They had done everything together. Now, she needed something more than words. Across millions of miles, Marisol rose and hurried to her workshop. The room smelled of metal and machine oil. Tools lay neatly on a table next to bundles of fiber-optic cable and microtransmitters. She breathed in and reached for a small sphere she had built days earlier. It was carved from polished aluminum, etched with a map of Mars and Ceres, connected by a line of tiny stars. Inside, a micro-hologram projector could display short scenes. She had tested its circuits and calibrated its lens, but she had not yet decided what to record. Her fingers hovered over the device. Maybe I should send flowers, she murmured. Analog gifts felt old-fashioned in a world of digital messages, but they carried weight. On a shelf, she saw a seedling, a rare strain of Martian violet that bloomed only under special lights. If the violet thrived during its shipment, Thea would know she thought of him every time it opened. She picked the seedling gently and placed it in a small, transparent pod, fitting it into a cradle inside the sphere.
How next?
She programmed the projector. Instead of a formal message, she recorded herself walking through the greenhouse at dusk. She spoke softly. Remember when we raced to pick the first ripe tomato? You spilled half on the floor and we laughed for hours. I miss your laughter. As she spoke, a faint hum filled the workshop. The projector light glowed, showing her face framed by green vines. When she finished, she pressed a button that set the scene to loop. Marisol packed the sphere into a padded container and carried it to the shipping bay. Surrounding her were freighters unloading supplies for the growing colonies. Workers moved calmly, their faces lit by helmet lamps. She approached a clerk at the terminal. I'd like to send this to Ceres Station, she said. The clerk scanned a code etched into the metal. Priority delivery, Marisol added. The clerk nodded, typing quickly. It'll arrive in 4 days, with your messages intact. Relief warmed Marisol's chest. Back in the greenhouse, Marisol tended her plants. She watered the violet seedling through the glass of its pod, imagining the petals unfurling under Ceres' artificial light. She hoped that each drop of water signaled her care. Humanity, she thought, could solve any problem when guided by hope and compassion. If she could grow food on Mars, she could bridge the gap to her brother, no matter the distance.
That night,
Marisol lay on her bunk, staring at the Martian sky through the dome above. Stars shimmered, as if cheering her on. She whispered to them, "Bring Theo home in 4 days." She pictured him unboxing the sphere, the tiny violet blooming, the hologram flickering to life. She imagined his smile and felt her own pulse quickened. The days passed more quickly than she expected. On the 3rd day, her datapad buzzed with a simple message, "Incoming package." Marisol rushed to the bay and watched through the viewport as a cargo drone descended. It carried a single container, floating down on magnetic tethers. She rushed to the terminal and retrieved the container, her heart pounding. At home, she opened the padded lid. The sphere lay nestled inside. She lifted it gently, turning it over in her hands. Graved on its surface were the words, "For Theo." She slid a panel open and set the projector running. Lights sprang to life, and there she was, walking among the vines. Theo's laughter echoed from the recording. The tiny violet inside the pod had unfurled a single lavender petal, pressing against the glass as if to touch the light. Marisol gasped. Tears sprang to her eyes, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of connection. From across the void, her voice and her gift had reached him. She closed her eyes and whispered, "I did it." Humanity's best came not from weapons, but from creativity and care. She knew soon Theo would send back his own gift, perhaps a fragment of Ceres stone or a recording of low-gravity sunsets. But for now, she held hope in her hands, small yet bright. In the gentle glow of the sphere's light, Marisol smiled. She felt at peace, and she knew that distance could never break the bond they shared. With every effort of her own creation, she had reached. Juno sat alone in the habitat module on the moon, staring at the single window that looked out on the gray plains. She tapped her foot nervously on the metal floor. Every day since Eli left for the Neptune research station, the air felt too quiet. The hum of life support systems seemed louder without Eli's laughter. Juno's heart ached with a dull sadness. She missed the way he helped her fix broken rovers and shared stories of Earth's oceans. Now those moments felt like distant dreams. She wanted to hear his voice again, but she did not know how to begin. Each morning, Juno checked her terminal. At first, Eli's messages came regularly. He wrote about icy storms on Triton, about new telescopes and strange signals from the Kuiper Belt. His words were exciting. But they did not fill the empty space beside her. As days turned into weeks, his replies grew shorter. Juno feared she had become just another crewmate on his long journey. She wondered if he forgot her laughter or the small jokes they shared while soldering circuits. The thought of losing that closeness made her chest tighten with worry. Late one afternoon, as orange light from Earth's sunrise crept across the lunar horizon, Juno climbed the steel walkways to the colony's energy tower. Above the modules, she could see the vast black sky. In that openness, an idea lit. Inside her mind, what if she could send Eli a message, not in words alone, but in light? Humans had mastered lasers and powerful arrays. She could use the tower's warning lights to blink a pattern that only he would understand, that might cut through the silence. Back in her workshop, Juno cleared a table and gathered her tools: circuit boards, fiber optic cables, and data chips. She sketched a simple plan on a holopad. The tower lights would blink in Morse code. First, the letters of Eli's name, then a short greeting, then a memory they shared. She chose the memory of their first rover repair under a blue Mars sky. Even here on the moon, she could honor their past and spark his hope. For 3 nights, Juno worked under the red glow of her lamp. She wired the circuits carefully, tested each LED cluster, and wrote code to translate sentences into precise pulses. She spoke aloud as she coded, E-L-I, hello, friend. Her fingers moved. With purpose, each time a test blinked perfectly, her heart thumped with excitement. She reminded herself that humanity could solve hard problems with creativity and care. This was her way of reaching across the void. On the 4th night, Juno climbed again, to the tower platform. She strapped on her helmet and activated the system. In the quiet dark, the light spoke softly. ... The message traced out Eli Hello Moon memories. Juno watched the lights blink in the slow pattern, her chest full of hope and fear. She stayed until the sequence repeated 10 times, then shut. Down the array. Sweat trickled down her back inside the suit. She whispered, "Please see me." That evening, Juno returned to her module and paced the floor. She tried to sleep, but her mind raced. Could Eli's station detect the towers? Signal from so far away. She pictured him in his cabin, eyes on a screen showing lunar weather, when suddenly the blinking code appeared, imagined his surprise, and the smile that would follow. She drew strength from that vision, even across billions of kilometers. She believed her light could find him. The next morning, a come alert beeped on Juno's desk. Her hands trembled as she opened the message from Neptune Station. Eli's handwriting scrolled on the screen. "I saw your light. I recognized our code. It means more than you know. I miss you too." Below, he sent a small hologram clip of his cabin window, where a single beam of pale moonlight swept across the control panels. At the bottom, he added, "Let's keep talking in code until we meet again." Tears of relief and joy blurred Juno's vision. She typed back, I will blink again tonight, and pressed send. Her legs felt weak, but her spirit soared. She realized that distance could not break the bonds people built with hope and imagination. Humans could reach each other with more than words. That night, Juno climbed to the tower once more and started the sequence. As the lights pulsed in the dark sky, she felt the pulse of humanity within her, the drive to connect, the will to overcome, silence, and the hope that even the vastness of space cannot dim the light of friendship. Sari stood on the sunlit deck of the Mercury Observatory. Watching the hot glare of the sun bounce off polished panels, she missed her friend Lena, who had sailed away months ago to the icy seas of Europa. Every morning Sari walked among humming generators and soldering stations, but each step felt hollow without Lena's quick smile. The observatory felt too bright, too noisy, and too empty. Sari's heart ached with a question she could not answer. How could she reach Lena across so many worlds? Each night, the station's lights dimmed and the gravity field hummed softly, but Sari could not rest. She checked her cum logs again and again. Lena's last messages described frozen geysers and strange salt patterns under Europa's ice. Those words were full of wonder, but they also reminded Sari that she could no longer share new experiments side by side. Their bond, once as strong as steel rivets, now felt as fragile as glass. Sari longed to hear Lena's voice, heavy with laughter, to feel that connection again. One afternoon, Sari wandered down to the station's library room, where shelves held relics from human history. She paused before a display of ancient earth art murals of sunflowers and ocean waves. An idea sparked. If she could not speak in person, perhaps she could send something more than words. Humans had built great ships to cross oceans, probes, to touch distant worlds and satellites to beam data across space. Why not use that same spirit to carry her friendship? Back in her small quarters, Sari opened a metal crate of spare parts. She laid out a tiny holocomb, fiber optic filaments, and crystal cubes that captured light. She remembered Lena's fascination with shifting patterns of dawn on Mercury, and her own love of colorful circuits. What if she could record a sunrise? Hear and wrap it in a tiny gift? A sunbox that Lena could open on Europa, a piece of Mercury's light to remind her of home? For days, Sari worked under the soft glow of her lamp. She coded patterns to transform sunlight into pulsing streams of data. She programmed a holocom to record the first seconds of dawn, when the horizon blazed with gold against dark steel. She wove fiber optic cables into a lattice that could replay the light through the crystal cubes. Each test filled her with hope. She was making something no machine had ever sent before. When the sun next rose, Sari set the device on the observatory balcony. The holocom tracked the edge of the horizon as light spilled over solar panels. Inside, the data crystals filled with shifting colors. She sealed the sunbox in a small capsule, etching Lena's name and the words Mercury Dawn on its side. Her hands trembled as she closed the lid. In that moment, she felt human ingenuity at its best, to reach beyond borders and worlds with creativity and care. Sari carried the capsule to the Bay. A technician in a reflective suit loaded it into a courier probe bound for Jupiter orbit, where a relay station would beam it onward to Europa. Next window, in 2 days, the technician said, tapping a console. Sari nodded, relief warming her chest. She pressed her palm against the cold metal of the probe and whispered, "For you, my friend." The next 48 hours crawled by. Sari kept busy with routine maintenance, checking pressure valves, calibrating sensors, but her thoughts flew ahead with the probe. She imagined Lena in her ice blue habitat, opening the sunbox and watching the crystals glow with Mercury's sunrise. She pictured Lena's smile, the one that could brighten even the darkest trench on Europa. At last a message pinged on Sari's terminal. Express delivery. Mercury Dawn. The file download began with slow bars filling against a black background. Sari watched, hardly breathing, until the transfer completed. She opened the file to see a hologram of her station's horizon at dawn, brilliant gold fading into pale blue. Beneath the visual, a short voice clip played. Sari's soft words, "Good morning, Lena. I miss you."
Yeah.
Tears sprang to Sari's eyes as she watched the scene loop. She replied immediately, I hope this light finds you well. I cannot wait to hear your voice. Within minutes, Lena's reply arrived. I see your dawn here under ice. It shines brighter than any lamp. I have. Thank you, my brave friend. Let us share our worlds through light. Sari pressed send and leaned back, her heart full. Across the void of space, she had sent more than light. She had sent hope, warmth, and the proof that distance could not dim friendship. She realized how truly powerful humanity could be, to bridge gaps not with weapons or force, but with imagination, kindness, and shared wonder. That evening, Sari stood once more on the deck of the Mercury Observatory. The sun dipped low, and panels shimmered with rosy light. She closed her eyes and whispered to the horizon, "Good night, Lena." In her chest, a quiet joy bloomed. No matter how far her friend had traveled, Sari knew they would always find each other because humans would never stop creating new ways to connect. The sky above Mars shimmered with thin clouds of red dust as Neil sat on the roof of the research dome, legs crossed, eyes fixed on the stars. He had always come up here with Rhea, his childhood friend and partner in every project. They used to spend hours talking, building little drones, and laughing over old Earth movies. But now Rhea was gone, transferred to the Mars-Jupiter relay station, orbiting far out in the cold dark. Neil missed her more than he could admit out loud. Station sent messages only once a week to conserve power. And her last message had been short, still getting used to the silence up here. Miss our long talks. He read it over and over, wishing he could respond with more than a few lines. He wanted her to know how much her absence weighed on him, how the dome felt empty. How his jokes sounded hollow without her laugh, he thought. About recording a voice message, but everything he tried to say sounded awkward. I hope you're warm up there, he whispered, then deleted the file. Rhea had always been stronger, more confident. Neil felt like the quiet one, the one who built machines but never knew the right words. But deep inside, he carried a spark, something all humans did. The same spark that had built domes on Mars and ships to fly between worlds. That night, Neil wandered into the workshop they once shared. On the shelf sat an old project, a small explorer bot they'd built as students. It had never worked properly, always tumbling over its wheels. But Rhea had loved it anyway. It's got charm, she'd said. Oh. Neil picked it up now, smiling. Sadly, then an idea came to him. Something simple, something hopeful. He opened the bot's dusty shell and began working. He replaced old circuits with newer ones, swapped its tiny battery for a solar cell, and programmed it to record short clips. Instead of just fixing the bot, he made it into something more, a message carrier, something that could play light and sound when opened. It was shaped like a little explorer, but now it could carry warmth, memory, and connection. Over the next few days, Neil collected pieces of their shared past. He recorded his voice reading one of their favorite stories. He added a few seconds of their favorite Earth music, the kind that always made Rhea dance in zero-G. He uploaded a short video of their old drone flying over Mars's canyons. And at the center of it all, he added a message. Hey Rhea, I didn't know how to say this before. I miss you. This place isn't the same without you. But I believe one day we'll walk together again, maybe here, maybe somewhere new. Until then, I'm sending this piece of our Mars to your stars. He packed the bot gently into a cargo. Drone headed for the relay station. The pilot didn't ask questions. Neil just handed over the container, labeled Personal Delivery. From Neil to Rhea. As the drone lifted into the soft red sky, Neil stood beneath it, shielding his eyes. He didn't know how long it would take. He didn't know if Rhea would write back. But for the first time in weeks, he felt something shift. Inside, a quiet hope blooming like one of the stubborn flowers they once tried to grow in the hydroponics lab. 2 weeks later, a new message arrived. It had no words, just a video clip. Neil tapped play. The screen filled with the relay station's docking bay. There was Rhea, holding the little explorer bot in her hands. Her eyes were wet, but she was smiling. She pressed a button on the bot, and it began playing his message. Oh. She didn't say anything, but she hugged the bot close to her chest. Neil watched in silence, tears prickling at the corners of his eyes. It wasn't a conversation. It wasn't a speech. But it was enough. he had reached her. He replied with a single line, "Send me something from your stars." A week later, a package arrived at Data Crystal shaped like a tiny comet. Filled with sounds from the relay station, the hum of orbit, the call of Jupiter's storms, and Rhea's quiet voice reading a new story. And so, across cold space, between dust and stars, they began to share again. Not just data, but pieces of their hearts. This, Neil realized, was humanity's strength. Not just the ability to travel between planets, but to reach across silence with kindness, with effort, with imagination. Dad. No matter how far apart people, drifted the spark inside them. Hope, love. Memory could always find a way. Asterisk Zara stood at the edge of the observation deck on Earth's orbital station, gazing down at the blue planet spinning slowly beneath her. It had been 3 months since her younger sister, Nia, left for the Venus Cloud habitat, one of humanity's newest and most daring colonies. Since then, everything had felt strange. Zara and Nia had grown up in a dome on Earth, under the skies of a restored forest zone. They had shared everything: books, stories, experiments, and long talks at night. Nia had always been curious and brave, chasing the sky, while Zara stayed grounded. Now that Nia was flying among the clouds of Venus, Zara felt like her own sky had gone quiet. At first, Nia sent messages often. She described floating cities, solar mirrors, and the soft hum of wind turbines above the clouds. But the messages started to come less and less. Life on Venus was busy, and signal delays made communication slow. Zara never said it aloud, but she worried Nia had moved on. Every day she felt more alone. One evening, Zara sat in her room, staring at the blinking cursor on her tablet. She had typed a dozen messages to Nia, but deleted them all. Nothing felt right. "How are you?" seemed too plain. "I miss you" felt too heavy. She sighed and looked out the window again. Stars twinkled above and Earth glowed below. Somewhere, her sister was floating in a different sky, breathing different air. She remembered how they used to draw maps of future worlds: Mars, Titan, and Venus. Nia always loved Venus the most. "It's not a dead world," she once said. "It just needs someone to listen." Zara smiled at the memory. Nia had always believed in impossible things, and sometimes they became real. Then an idea came. Zara opened her drawer and pulled out an old, half-finished art project. It was a sphere made of transparent polymer, like a snow globe. She had planned to turn it into a miniature world. Now, maybe she still could, but this time, it would be a message. Over the next few days, Zara worked after her shifts in the lab. She turned her small room into a workshop. She painted clouds along the inside of the sphere, added golden thread to represent solar panels, and carefully placed small bits of crystal to sparkle like sunlight. In the center, she added a tiny figure, 2 girls standing together, hand in hand. One wore a blue jumpsuit, the other wore orange, just like their old uniforms. Inside the base, she placed a simple chip. It would play a short voice recording. Triggered by light, Zara recorded her message carefully. "Hey Nia, I don't really know what to say. I just miss you. I hope you're flying high and laughing like always. I made this to remind you where you came from and who's waiting to hear from you again." She packaged the sphere and sent it through a supply shuttle headed toward Venus. She didn't expect an answer right away. Maybe not at all, but she felt lighter. In creating that gift, she had put her heart into something real. That was what humans did best, she thought. Take sadness and turn it into something beautiful. Weeks passed. Zara returned to her daily work fixing solar shields, checking orbital data, but her heart still held on to hope. She watched every shuttle, every transmission, wondering if her message had reached its sky. Then, one morning, her comm system beeped. She opened the message and gasped. A hologram appeared, Nia, wearing her orange jumpsuit, floating inside the cloud habitat. Her eyes were wide with emotion. Behind her, the globe sat on a shelf, catching sunlight and scattering rainbows around the room. "Zara," Nia said, her voice shaking slightly, I don't know how to thank you. I opened this and felt like I was home again. I didn't realize how much I missed you. Until now. I thought I had to be strong and focused, but maybe what I needed was to remember where I came from. Thank you. I promise I'll write more. Next time you look up, no, I'm waving back. Zara smiled through tears. Her heart felt full again. She looked out the window toward the soft yellow glow of Venus, far in the distance. Somewhere up there, her sister was holding on to the same hope she had felt. They were apart, yes, but never truly separated. In that quiet moment, Zara thought about humanity's journey, reaching to new planets, building homes in the clouds, and most of all, ever forgetting each other. It wasn't just about ships or science. It was about love, about keeping the light alive between stars. And that, she knew, was the real power of humanity. Even across the sky, people would always find a way to reconnect. The stars outside the Deep Space Observatory blinked like tiny candles, cold and far away. Caleb sat at his workstation, resting his chin on his hand, barely looking at the data scrolling across the screen. Had once dreamed of being out here mapping distant galaxies, watching neutron stars spin, but now the silence inside him was louder than space. Mira was gone. Not gone forever, just gone far. She had accepted a post on the Andromeda listening post, one of the most distant human outposts ever built. It had been her dream for years, and Caleb had encouraged her, even smiled when she left. But now, with only a message from her once every few weeks and no real conversations, the distance between them felt endless. They used to laugh together. Every night during long shifts, she'd bring him protein bars flavored like mint or chili, just to see his reaction. He missed her jokes, her voice, the way she tapped her foot when she was thinking. Life without Mira was like music without sound. He tried writing a message. How's the new station? Too bland. Another, I've been missing you a lot lately. Too heavy. Delete, delete. Caleb sighed and stared out the dome's window. The stars didn't help. They reminded him of how far she was. He didn't even know if she felt the same emptiness he did. Maybe she was happy out there. Maybe she had already moved on. But a small part of him didn't believe that. And humans, he reminded himself, never gave up, not on exploration, not on hope, definitely not on people they cared about. So Caleb stood up, walked past the control deck, down the long hallway of the observatory, until he reached the old instrument lab. Dust hung in the corners. Half the machines were offline, replaced by newer tech. But in the far corner, he saw it, the star sculpture. It had been a student art project years ago, a dome of tiny lights, each one connected to a voice clip from people across Earth and space. Activated, the lights would blink to the rhythm of the words. It wasn't useful for science, but it was beautiful. Human. Caleb had helped install it once. Back when he and Mira were still training together, she had loved it. Galaxy of voices, she had said. We should make one just for us. Back then it had been a joke. But maybe now, it could be something more. Caleb got to work. He opened the panel, repaired the broken wiring, and programmed it to use modern transmitters. Then he recorded dozens of voice messages, memories of their time together. Favorite lines from books, a few silly impressions Mira used to laugh at. He spoke softly, honestly. For the first time in weeks, his chest didn't feel so heavy. He even added sounds from their old observatory, the coffee machine's beep, the sound of a door opening, the chirp of the data ping she used to monitor. He programmed the lights to respond to each clip, glowing in soft waves like breathing stars. I called it the Mira Array. When it was ready, he uploaded the code into a capsule and sent it on a fast probe bound for the Andromeda listening post. It would take weeks to get there. He didn't know what she would say. But he had sent her something more than a message. He had sent her a piece of the life they once shared. And that meant something. 2 long weeks passed. Caleb kept his head down, doing his work, pretending not to watch the message board. Then, one night, a new file arrived from the outer system. The message opened with Myra's voice, soft and shaking. Caleb, I didn't know how much I needed this until I saw it. I haven't laughed this hard in weeks. I forgot how much. I missed our late-night talks. Sat in the dark and watched your star sculpture light up around me. Felt like you were right here. I even cried a little. Not from sadness, just because someone remembered me like that. She paused, then added, I'm building a sculpture too. For you, you'll have it soon, I promise. Caleb leaned back, staring at the screen with wide eyes. He didn't know what to say, didn't have to. Her voice had already reached him, and his had reached her. That night, he sat beneath the observatory dome, watching the stars. But this time he didn't feel small, felt strong, proud, human, because that was what made them who they were. Not just the ships, the science, or the stars, but the courage to keep caring, even across light years. The quiet bravery of trying again. The power of a heart that never stops reaching. Caleb smiled. Mira was far, but not gone. And the stars didn't feel so cold anymore.